Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be answering one of your questions and I will give a little story time that relates to the question. Now, I posted my Instagram stories and my YouTube community tab whether you guys had any questions you wanted me to answer. And so I did a couple videos, a couple Q&A videos answering them. But this one question deserves its own video entirely. So I'll just go ahead and read it to you. Any advice on how to negotiate a higher salary during a long promised promotion? Now, if you are new to my channel, I recently quit my 9-to-5 corporate law job. I did an entire video of my resignation journey. So check that out. Now, obviously, there were a lot of discussions leading up to that decision. I officially left because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to spend time with my 3 kids. I felt that I missed out a lot on my older 2, their childhood, because I was always working. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss out anymore. I had my YouTube channel on the side, and I was able to get to a point with my YouTube channel that the income generated from it was able to accommodate that decision to me resigning from my corporate job. So this question, seeking advice on how to negotiate a higher salary during a long promised promotion, really hit home with me because that was one of the factors that I considered when I decided to finally leave. Now, one piece of advice that I always give, especially for women, I find that women don't always negotiate their salary. And that's something that I personally am proud that, it wasn't something that my parents taught me. My parents are hard workers, but they never taught me how to negotiate and advocate for myself when it comes to work. That was something that I just did for myself. And it's mostly because I'd be damned if I let any man or woman make more than me when we have the exact same relevant work experience, right? So the way I looked at it, I was always a hustler growing up. I talk about when I worked for LV, leading up to LV, I was a waitress and I worked at other, retail jobs. I always pretty much leveraged my previous job to get a better salary offer when I was seeking another job. And so I always did research and I was always aware of what others were making. And I say this because going back to the question, any advice on how to negotiate a higher salary during a long promised promotion, it's a 2-pronged question, right? Because one is, okay, you're in your current job and they're promising you a higher salary. How do you negotiate it when you're not getting it, basically? The other issue that some people don't consider is that you need to go into a new job at the best salary that they can offer. Many people are content with just accepting whatever the first offer is because they're just so happy to have a job. But what I always recommend is that you need to understand that this job, this employer wants you. And obviously there are many factors to consider, but depending on the field, the industry, the type of job, the competition, obviously, there is room for negotiation. There is room for a counter offer. And often employers expect a counter offer, and so they're not going to go back and forth with you unless you bring it up. So for every single job that I've ever had, I've always negotiated a higher salary successfully. And that includes federal government jobs. I may have mentioned in my previous Q&A videos, after I worked for LV, I went to law school, I worked for the county, the state government, and then federal government. And even at those levels, I always negotiated for a higher salary based on XYZ. You have to present yourself and all the values you bring to the job, your education, your training, your experience. Not only should they be so psyched to hire you, but also why they should pay you more than what they initially suggested, because actually you can also offer XYZ. So I have 2 story times relating to that. The first part is going into the job. When I was offered this position with the federal government, it was with the military branch, JAG, and I went in, I interviewed with the head JAG. It was a panel interview for JAG, and they hired me. They sent me the offer. Now, some people may just accept that and just be glad that they have a job, especially with the federal government. First of all, if you're familiar with the federal government jobs and salaries, this is way lower than what I thought it would be. So I basically countered. And so this was an email offer and it was through their usajobs.gov, the hiring official. And I countered back and I thanked them for the offer. I appreciate the offer. I basically countered and I said, okay, it helps to have experience. So if you're entry level and you don't really have anything to back it up, then that's a different response. But in this case, I was a working professional. I had several years in the legal field. And when they offered me this job at this, at X salary, which was terrible, very low for the grade. Basically, there's a pay grade range, and it was the very bottom. Like, it was the very bottom grade, bottom step. I basically negotiated and I said, I believe that I would be more suited for this grade, this higher grade, this higher step, because I have this many years experience. I have this experience with this program, with this software, with this whatever, active working experience as a professional. I feel I would be more suited to this higher salary range. I was pleasantly surprised because they came back and met me halfway. I fully expected that they would, counter my counter. So I happily accepted their counter of my counter, which was basically halfway of what I came back with. And a funny conversation I had was with one of my colleagues later on. And he was also hired at the same grade, same step as me. And he was like, wait a minute, you're this step, because we onboarded at the same time. And he was like, how did you get up to this step already? And I said, well, they hired me at, the mid-range. And he was like, how? He just was so shocked. And this was a grown man, obviously was in my 20s at this point. But this was a guy well in his 30s, had worked longer than me. But he just accepted their offer, and it was the same offer as me. And he was so shocked and so confused. And he literally said, I didn't know we were allowed to do that. And here's the thing. You are allowed to do that. And in fact, you should be encouraged and you should feel empowered to make any counteroffer to an initial job offer and salary range. So number one is making sure that at the initial job offer acceptance stage, you're getting in at the best and the most that they can offer that you're willing to accept. Now to the actual question, advice on how to negotiate a higher salary during a long promised promotion. Here's where it gets a little tricky. So in one of my other jobs, this was the one where I did a story time about how my coworker stole from me. It was at that place. One of my colleagues, and at this point, similar to the federal government job, this was at the county state level. My colleague, he and I started, and again, it's with a guy, and this was even funnier because he was so mad when he found out how much I made. So he and I started at the same time. We had kind of similar work experience in terms of relevant work experience. He had worked longer, just in general. He was a lot older, but in a different field, in a different industry. So coming in, we were pretty much equals, I would say. And we started also around the same week. It was like a big hiring, group. They were hiring a bunch of people at the same time. So he and I started the same week, maybe even the same day. So I realized, okay, I need to make more money. Ideally, I would like to stay in that job and just make more money. Like I didn't want to uproot everything. There was a lot of stuff going on. I was going to law school at night. So I didn't want like a huge new upheaval in my life. I wanted to stay where I was, but argue for a higher salary. And so what I did was go out and look for a new job. But I didn't look for a new job in a totally different field, in a totally different firm. It was pretty much in the same group, the same employer, but in a different department. And so there was an opening, they interviewed, they hired me, and I took that offer and I leveraged it with my current employer for a higher salary. Not only did they meet that new salary offer from a different job, but they actually beat it. I mean, I was pleased because again, I didn't want to stay. I just wanted more money. And I wanted to prove to them that I was worth it and that another employer was willing to pay me that much. Now, the tricky part of that was that conversation that they were willing to not only match, but beat the other job offer was a verbal conversation with my boss, who was also the hiring manager. I'm no fool. I followed up that conversation with an email thanking her for the conversation, summarizing the numbers and the dates and the expectations of what this new salary would be. And she, responded and said, yes, that's what it is, whatever. I did a video talking about how LV was a toxic work environment. This office was a toxic work environment. Besides my coworkers stealing my, coffee mugs from me, this other coworker, I had come back from lunch or something, and he was so mean to me. Like, I was like, what? I just greeted him and he was really mean. I was like, what the hell is his problem? I went to my other coworker and I said, what's his problem? And she said, oh, he's mad because he saw your email and saw that you're making more than him. What? I mean, can you believe that? So we had a shared office and I had my desk. Later, I found out he claims that I left my email out, which I would never do. I would never leave my email inbox open, especially not an email that has such controversial information in it. I fully believe that he went onto my computer, went into my email inbox and was sniffing around for information that he could use against me. And, he just hurt himself because he saw that I was making more money for him. But what was so funny is my coworker told him, she's like, and she kind of relayed the conversation that she had with him because he went to her complaining that, oh, why is Cindy making more money? We started here at the same time. Because in his mind, he thought that just the sheer fact that we were working there for the same amount of time, that we should have the same salary, which obviously I debunked because I found a way to make more than him. So she literally told him, don't be upset with Cindy because she's advocating for herself. If you want more money, if you want a higher salary, you need to advocate for yourself. And, pretty much that's that. So I think he was embarrassed because he never said anything to me. So yeah, after that, I was like, how shady of you. Don't be mad because I'm making more than you because I found a way to argue that I provide more value. And because my employer also believed that I have more value and offered more for me to stay. So that's what I did to make sure I had this higher salary and promotion. And that's the advice that I would give for anyone who is seeking a higher salary or a promotion that is promised as part of their annual review. But the thing is, if you aren't getting that, if the company is just kind of stringing you along, you just have to go out there and seek it for yourself from another company. And that's a lot of times what people tell you to do. There's only so much room that you can move up in your job, and a lot of jobs you can't move up. So the best way to move up is to kind of bounce around, and maybe every 2 or 3 years, go out, test the waters, apply to other jobs, interview for other jobs, and see what their salary is. And then maybe use that to your advantage and leverage a higher salary in your current position. So I hope you enjoyed my story times. I hope that answered your question. Let me know what your experience has been arguing for a higher salary or a promotion. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye.